Make no mistake about it, the unaddressed epidemic of the 21st century is trauma. That's because no one on this planet escapes trauma, nor its unconscious after effects. At its worst, trauma morphs into life-threatening illnesses, violence, suicide, psychosis, addiction, depression, and disease, to name a few. At its best, trauma leads to overwork, thrill-seeking, and consumerism that fail to satisfy. Over time, trauma will not magically dissolve, nor will it heal of its own accord. Healing yourself is how you help heal the world. The social constructs behind trauma are embedded in the 4 isms: racism, sexism, classism, and nationalism. The isms lead to terrorism, genocide, war, propaganda, sexual and physical abuse, child trafficking, slavery, poverty, discrimination, indoctrination, and suppression of knowledge. Sadly, denying the existence of the shadowy societal forces that keep the fires of trauma stoked to deliberately induce post-traumatic stress for profit and control purposes does not make it disappear. In addition, it is a colossal waste of energy to wage war against these hidden forces.
So this is a highly traumatized society. This is the world in which there's even more need for painful inquiry.
I'm sure we'd all agree that if a child is the victim of a natural disaster, we would rescue that child, and that's how we should rescue these children. But the response of the political establishment to the chronic trauma of these kids is basically to normalize their despair.
All addictive behavior can be traced back to childhood trauma. That's something you assert.
Not everybody who's traumatized becomes addicted, but everyone addicted was traumatized.
How does one reconcile the principles of a nation that prides itself on freedom and democracy and commits genocide against natives and enslaves Africans? How does one reconcile the contradiction? Because that contradiction, you see, produces cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance occurs when you are simultaneously holding contradictory ideas, beliefs, attitudes.
The quantum healing techniques that I have developed demagnetize the force of the original negative event horizon that keeps pulling people back into negative feedback loops. It also explains why cognitive dissonance keeps so many individuals confused and stuck on stupid. Getting Unstuck is designed to propel you onto a new timeline that aligns with personal power, spirit, and truth.
Trauma isn't what happens to you. It's what happens inside you. It's when you're alone with your pain and sadness, so you can't process it and move through it.
Is it possible to raise your children without trauma?
Life is inherently painful. You can't protect children from that, nor should you try to. What you can do, though, is help them experience it accompanied by a nurturing adult.
In order to create generational wealth, we have to heal generational trauma. So I was always a skeptic about things like that because I just thought, how are you going to heal trauma?
We created a campaign called I Believe Her because you wouldn't believe how many folks do not believe women when they say that they have been victims of abuse. And so I Believe Her became such a rallying cry.
Conversation. Bring the fathers back into the home. What we did in the 60s with welfare was not fair to our community, ladies and gentlemen. You said we'll give you money, but the man has to be outside of the home. That caused trauma that's going to last for another 50 years.
It's been a life full of struggling with addictions. It's been a life where I have self-destructed. I've thrown away all the opportunities that have come my way.
I think at some point I was trying to intervene too passionately into their journeys that it would affect my own. After the session, it really made me realize that, and I took like a huge step back. The stuff that I was trying to get them to see, they're starting to seeing it themselves. And that's the only way healing for them can happen.
I am a third generation out of slavery. My great-grandfather was 6 years old when he was given to his 6-year-old master by the big master. And so if I think that doesn't have something to do with some of the things that go on with me today, then I've got another thought coming. And I want you to know that you do too, because we have to stop acting like this isn't an issue for us. It's an issue.
Epigenetics basically looks at how the environment shapes our genes. And what they've been able to discover is that we can actually transfer in our DNA, transmit it through generations, dreams, nightmares. We can transmit trauma.
It took decades for me to become consciously cognizant of the fact that what actually helped me survive repeated traumas was a combination of three things. The first thing was writing about it. When I became a writer at the age of 8, I noticed that after I intuitively rescripted a traumatic event into a poem, a short story, or a conversation that made me feel lighter and brighter about it, something inside of me unconsciously shifted in a profound way. I figured this out before science even proved that the mind doesn't know the difference between an event that actually occurred and one that is visualized, spoken, or written in words. Writing kept me sane in an upside-down world and helped me discover meaning in the madness I grew up in. I was able to tap into a divine stream of consciousness that wrote through me, providing insights that allowed me to see through the cons and lies that abusive individuals use as a cover for their own insanity. By intuitively tapping into the sociopath's need to inflict pain and to exercise control over others, I was able to outwit them by not reacting with fear and by allowing them to think they were in control. The insights I gathered from reading, researching, and writing diffused much of the anxiety I felt from living through one type of trauma after another, be it domestic violence, poverty, hunger, neglect, molestation, or psychological gaslighting by a sociopathic adoptive father who excelled at making others think they were the crazy ones. That trauma led me to write an Amazon bestseller about personality disorders, which was also my dissertation topic. The second thing was refusing to bear the burden of shame inherent in keeping the dirty little secrets of abusive individuals. At age 13, I escaped being raped by my adoptive father after being kidnapped by him. After that, I left home to live with relatives. And the third thing, being an intuitive empath who was also an authentic and open-hearted nonconformist. Like Emerson, I could not sell my liberty and my power to save the sensibility of others, because whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist, since nothing can bring you peace but yourself. Like Emerson, others either loved me or hated me. I was born without a filter and had no problem expressing my feelings and aversions. By the age of 16, I was working and paying all of the rent on my own beautiful, new luxury apartment in the suburbs of Houston. While attending high school full-time, working 3 to 11 at night, I took 3 buses to school, 3 to work, and paid a friend to pick me up at night. For others, that might have been exhausting, but for me, I'd finally fulfilled my dream of getting out of the ghetto and being on my own. Unlike other elementary school students who looked forward to weekends and summer vacations, I dreaded mine. I lived a few doors down from a nightclub where blues bands performed on weekends. The drunken revelry usually wound up in fights where someone I knew got beaten badly, stabbed, or even shot to death. My mother was a singer who sang there, so every time I woke up to the sounds of sirens, I went into a panic, terrified that she was injured or dead. We had no phone, so I was unable to sleep until she got home. Even if that meant her being beaten up there by my adopted father, I was just grateful she came home still breathing. Getting my homework done was, of course, difficult due to the unending noise of 4 younger kids running around, fighting, screaming, and tearing up the place, taking out the rage they felt against their father on each other. When I was not cleaning up, cooking, washing, and gardening, I was running to the store for my mom, serving her food or coffee in bed, lighting her cigarettes for her, or fetching whatever she needed. Even though being Cinderella mitigated some of the beatings from my adopted dad, it certainly did not stop them. However, in a world of duality, nothing is ever all bad. As a child, I did feel blessed to be among the handful of poverty-stricken ghetto kids bused to a public school that was part of a university where the professors and well-to-do professionals sent their children. I looked forward to school because the students there were taught civility and manners. Popularity was not based on athleticism, how you dressed, or the material things you own. It was based on innate talent, intellect, and one's capacity for compassion, empathy, and kindness. Surprisingly to anyone who knew me, I managed to score in the 99th percentile nationwide on national standardized tests, which mystified my teachers who knew there was no one at my home capable of caring if I even went to school, let alone did my homework. That's because my mother had severe anxiety, depression, and health issues caused by the beatings and abuse everyone at home was subjected to by my adopted father. As a result, she was in and out of the hospital, sometimes for months at a time. And when she was at home, she drank and smoked to cope with her feelings of being powerless, feeling unloved by her mother, and hopeless. But what I intuited was that education was going to be my ticket out of the ghetto of physical and emotional abuse and neglect that was my life. My journey into full awareness of the work I was here to do was not without divine guidance from individuals placed in my path. For instance, the founder of the Esoteric Philosophy Center in Houston told me when I was in undergrad that my writing and lectures would help bring races together. Interestingly, as a college professor, I did bring thousands of students of different races, many of whom held racist beliefs, together. In Ecuador, I met an author who did a human design chart for me that revealed I came here as a high priestess of the Great Mother and that I incarnated to teach how to prepare the vessel to receive universal mind and medicine and to become the emanation of the higher self as a persona. Not surprisingly, the work I do to help people clear the body and mind of trauma prepares it to receive those higher vibrations. I am releasing quantum trauma healing to the world now because I believe that in this exciting and transformative time, it is an important tool to help individuals attain the higher vibration this planet is already ascending to by using truth to clear the overhanging shadow of abuse. After all, to remain stuck in the traumas of the past tethers one to the lower vibratory frequencies attached to them.
We have the capacity within ourselves to turn this around. The answers are all within you. And if you need guidance, it's not how to negotiate the world out there. It's how to negotiate the world within.
I thought maybe there's something to this. So I talked to Dr. Parthenia and she agreed to do a session with me. Guess what? My fear of heights is gone. I am in motion on projects that I have been sitting on for years.
Everybody has it. So turning around and facing it is the first big step. Addressing it is the next big step. And they're huge steps because it's freedom after that. My biggest fear was living with having regrets. I don't feel that that's something that I'm willing to entertain anymore. Is that I didn't feel good enough, and now I do.
So after our session, the first thing that I noticed right away was a sense of lightness. I had like this weight on my shoulder that I didn't really know I had it. It's like one of those things that you don't realize you have it until you don't have it, and then you see the difference. I'm way more aware of the power that I have. What I learned was that I had the power all the time. I feel like everything is aligning perfectly. And it feels like the universe is talking to me But the big difference is that now I'm listening. Like amazing things have happened and it's just kind of coming to me. It's not even me trying or chasing.
Your life you may have been living has been predicated from your past, and whether or not you want to be freed from that, that's your decision, but it's a big decision and it's one to make, I feel.
I could never go back to the old timeline, to the old Jade, to the broken, fragmented little glimpse of who I have been for the last 30 years. Just in these 2 short weeks, I've started 2 new jobs and been offered a management position in one of them, which is a really big deal. And I feel ready to heal the whole world.
I was like looking around going, where's Jade? Who is this girl? If this process can actually have such a profound impact on someone who is as stubborn as Jade, it certainly can work with anyone.
Trauma is trapped in the DNA. So when I say we need to heal, if we do not heal, we doom future generations.
So I tell anybody that I meet now that I was smart enough to get Dr. Parthenia to be my vice president for Califia, and you need to be smart enough to work with her because you will not regret it.
It is my aim to present an eye-opening historical context that explains how and why society ended up so traumatized and what can be done to break free from each of the 8 addictive shadow cells that block individuals from reaching their highest potential. For more information on quantum trauma clearing, or to learn more about how to reverse aging, purify, and prepare the body for higher vibratory frequencies, please visit www.drparthenia.com.